Hi, good evening, and welcome everyone. My name is Natalie Gluck-Mitchell, and I will be your MC tonight. I'm so proud to be a Healthrate 360 Prototypes board member, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the virtual gathering of one of our favorite annual events, Celebrating Mothers. What's the best part of any party? The sweets, of course. So let's get ready to make some cookies. But before we get started, I want to go over a few logistics with you. If you have any questions during the class and need extra support, please send your questions to us over the chat function and we'll answer them there. Before we get started, please do the following things. Preheat your oven to 375. Hopefully you have your ingredients pre-measured, and line your sheet pans with parchment paper. And if you're ready, I am pleased to introduce Chuck Siegel, the founder and owner of Charles Chocolates. Charles Chocolates are handmade in small batches using only the finest all-natural ingredients. Chuck, who is self-taught, won a Good Food Award in 2011, nabbed a Sunset Magazine's Best of the West Award, as well as accolades from 7 by 7 and the East Bay Express. Thank you, Chuck, for joining us tonight and donating your time and talents to support our Prototypes program.
Well, thank you. It is an absolute pleasure to be doing this again with Healthrate 360 and to be making cookies. When you think about celebrating mothers and children, one of the very first thing in almost every culture that a mother teaches a child to make, at least when it comes to sweets, is some type of cookie. If you grew up in the 70s in Flint, Michigan, like I did, it was chocolate chip cookies that came out of a box. And you added water and eggs, and that's how you made chocolate chip cookies. We're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to make them from scratch, which quite frankly is just as easy and a lot better. So as Natalie mentioned, hopefully you've got a few things prepared. The ingredients pre-measured is a great one. Trays lined with parchment. If you don't have parchment and you're trying to figure out what to do, if you've got a vegetable spray, you can spray the pan, the sheet pan with vegetable spray. That works just as well. Or if you have one that's already non-stick coated, that's even better because then you don't have to do anything. If you have something called a Silpat, which you'll see that we're using, that's also great. It's basically a silicone mat, which is like a piece of parchment that you can use a gazillion times. So anyways, making chocolate chip cookies is one of the easiest things in the world to do. They're very forgiving and they're also really, really flexible. So we're going to be making a basic chocolate chip cookie, but it's a recipe that's basically designed to be messed with. I'm going to be making ours with two different types of chocolate. It's not in the recipe, but just to give an idea of kind of the things you can do. You can add nuts, you can add raisins, you can add coconut, you can do whatever you want. I always say in addition to the chocolate because what good's a cookie without chocolate? But that's kind of just my personal opinion. So with that, there's a few basic steps, and the steps basically are broken into 3 different sections, each one really important to how the cookie's gonna turn out. The first one is mixing the sugars, the salt, and the butter together. So if you've got a stand mixer with a paddle attachment, great. If you don't, and you have just a hand mixer, that's also great. And if you have neither, you can do this just with like a large spoon, a wooden paddle, almost anything. It'll take a little bit more time, but it all works equally well. So the first thing you want to do basically is turn the mixer on. You want your butter to be soft, room temperature, and you just want to basically kind of get it broken up. What's going to happen, because it's not a huge amount of butter in a good sized mixing bowl, is it's going to kind of go up the sides of the bowl, and that's fine, because what we're going to do next is add the sugars and salt. I've got them mixed together. The brown sugar, the white sugar, and the salt just in one bowl, quite frankly, just because it's fewer things to watch. When you add stuff to the mixer, you want to do one of two things: either turn it off or turn it on low. The reason is if it's anything above low, whatever you pour in basically is going to end up all over your countertop. If it's flour, just turn it off, even if it says to add flour when it's running, because it's just going to end up everywhere. So I'm going to turn this off, add the sugars, and turn it back on. I'm gonna turn it on medium low for a minute just to get everything mixing together. This is a really important step though, because you really want the sugars and the butter to be really well blended together. However well blended these three ingredients are is going to be kind of like the determining factor of how good the texture of the cookie is. I'm going to turn it up a little bit now. And then the other thing also is this is going to take a couple minutes. A lot of people basically want to add ingredients and keep going and go to the next step, go to the next step, and do it as quickly as they can. But when you're mixing some things together, the last time we did this, we made brownies, and actually the key was to not mix it that much and you get a crust on top of the brownie. But when you're making chocolate chip cookies, you really want to make sure the butter and the sugars are really well blended. We're going to do the same thing in a minute when we add the eggs and vanilla. And what you're looking for is for the whole thing to kind of have this light brown fluffy mix. Okay, now this doesn't always happen, but it happens sometimes when your butter's not quite soft enough. I don't know if it's gonna be something I can show, but if you look, you'll see that there's kind of butter stuck to the paddle a little bit. In a lot of recipes, you'll see scrape down the sides, and you always need to do that kind of intermittently just to make sure everything is off the sides of the bowl and blending well. In this case, you also wanna get the butter off of that center paddle, because it's never going to do it on its own, and that butter is never going to get well mixed in. Now, while we're doing this, there's a step at the end where it says that you can make these a day ahead and put the mix in the refrigerator overnight. We're not going to be doing that, obviously, for everyone who's making it here with us right now. That's actually a great idea, though. Interestingly, chocolate chip cookies taste a lot better if you bake them the second day. You're going to have this recipe or other recipes that you use that you'll be able to bake anytime. But if you can let the dough rest overnight in the fridge, it really helps. It allows the flour to fully hydrate. The flavors really blend together well. It also makes the cookie, the texture's a little bit better. It's a little chewier and less flaky. Okay, so now that the butter and the sugars are kind of nice and blended and that nice kind of fluffy texture, scrape down the bowl again. And now we're going to turn it on low to add the eggs. And you want to add the eggs one at a time. I've got them pre-broken, and I also have the vanilla in here. Again, it's just a shortcut to make sure I'm not doing dishes late into the night. So add one, turn the mixer up. And once that gets blended in, turn it down to low, add the last one.
Jacques, we have a question.
Go ahead.
Do you use regular flour or bread flour?
Oh, great question. So in this recipe, we're using two different types of flour. We're using regular all-purpose flour, and then we're also using whole wheat flour, really just for flavor. The whole wheat flour gives it kind of a little bit of a nutty flavor, a little bit more of a complex flavor than plain white flour. But for cookies, I don't use bread flour because you don't want that gluten to develop, because then you end up getting kind of like a tough cookie, and that's not really what we're looking for. I'm going to turn this up a little bit and get the egg nice and blended in. Did that answer the question? I hope.
We'll find out. Anyone else want to chat in questions?
Okay, that's the other thing. I don't mind questions as we go. In fact, if there's a question that has to do with something we're doing in the moment, it's actually better to ask it rather than hold it. Okay, once you've got the egg nice and blended in, same thing, scrape down the bowl again, make sure all the mixes in the middle. And then the next thing we're going to add is the flours and the baking soda. So again, I blend it up, but this is a mixture of brown and white flour. Always add this with the motor off. And then the baking soda. The baking soda is really just a leavening agent. It just helps it rise. And we're not looking for, started on low. We're not looking for these cookies to kind of like be big and puffy. But if you don't put a little bit of the leavening agent in there, what's going to happen is they're just going to stay really flat, and you want them to have a little bit of body to them. Okay, this should mix in pretty quickly because they'll just absorb all of the liquid that's been sitting in the bowl. And then we're going to add the chocolate. So I mentioned chocolate. So the cookies that I made kind of in advance of this, that you'll see at the end, I made using discs of bittersweet chocolate. I did that because that's what we kind of use in a professional kitchen. And I really like cookies that are made that way, and I didn't have a lot of time. So I just used those. For tonight, I'm using 2 different chocolate chips blended together, bittersweet and milk chocolate. They're really good with just bittersweet chips. They're good with semi-sweet. They're good with milk. I like kind of what happens when you use them together. It gives a really kind of, again, a nice little variation in flavor, a little more complexity to the cookie. I do really like, and this isn't an advertisement, they're not sponsoring us. Guitar Chocolate is this great family-owned chocolate company down in Burlingame, California. The reason I like their baking chips is they're actually real chocolate. A lot of chips out there like Nestle's and a lot of the really cheap chocolate chips aren't real chocolate, and they don't taste as good. And the texture when you bake them isn't nearly as good. There are other brands that are like real chocolate. I just would steer you towards those. Kind of a basic truism when you're cooking is if you use bad ingredients, you get bad results. If you use good ingredients, they're basically yours to screw up. So if you don't screw up, they're going to taste really good. And these are really good chocolate chips. So we're going to add those. And just get them nice and mixed in.
Okay, another question. Can we break up Charles Chocolate's bars like the bars with Toffee to use as chips?
You absolutely can. So toffee is really good because it softens in a cookie. And actually, the cookie that we're most famous for, either in our old store when we had a retail store on Florida Street or at Outside Lands, when we do Outside Lands every year, is actually chocolate chunk with little bits of caramel. So it's kind of like the toffee, but a little softer. That caramelized sugar flavor is just fantastic with chocolate chips. Okay, so a few of the chips didn't make it in. So I'm just gonna toss them in. Okay, then you've got this beater covered. You just need to scrape it off. Okay. And if you'll excuse me, I'm just gonna put this over here out of the way. And I'm going to do the same thing with the mixer. So I can bring a cookie sheet in.
What do you, another question. Oh, these are coming in direct message to me. So what do you suggest we can use as an alternative to that high-powered mixer?
Okay, so there's a couple things you can use. Hold on one second, I'll show you one of them. You can use a regular hand mixer, like a little electric mixer, works just fine. If you don't have an electric mixer, you could use just a spoon. You can use something like this, just a stiff spatula, a wooden spoon, almost anything you've got as long as everything gets mixed together well. And the key is really getting everything mixed together well. So kind of in order of convenience and speed, the stand mixer is the best. It's powerful, it's fast, it does it really, really well. The hand mixer also does it well. It'll just take a little bit longer, and doing it by hand will just take a little bit longer still. All of them work really well though. You're not going to have a problem no matter how you do it. Okay, so once we have the batter or dough, we basically just have to scoop it. And you can do scoops of any size. In the recipe, it says a tablespoon. A tablespoon in this recipe makes a good 35 or so cookies. They're not huge. They're really just like a nice convenient size. But you can use, I mean, up to like 4 or 5 ounces. The small ones are about 1 ounce each. So you can do a nice size like ice cream scoop and get like a nice big cookie. You really just have to pay attention when you're baking them. And we'll talk about baking and times and kind of what to watch for in a second. So basically now it's just scooping them, and you want to scoop them and leave them round. These are a cookie that you don't need to flatten. Some cookie doughs that are really stiff, you need to take a fork or the back of a spoon to them and flatten them out before you bake them. But these you just scoop and let them be. Leave enough room, they will spread, so that they can spread without horribly running into each other. And you don't have to worry about doing them all at once. If you don't have enough cookie sheets to do the entire batch all at once, just do what you can. When they come out, put the cookies on a rack to cool. Always let the sheet pan cool before you use it again. Don't use it hot because it'll start to melt the batter or the dough, and it'll just start to spread. It'll be kind of like an ugly looking cookie when you're done. So just take it, run it under some cool water, dry it off, and then just start all over again and keep going. They don't have to bake for very long. And depending on the size, the small ones only have to bake for about anywhere from 10 to 14 minutes. So you can really crank out a lot of them, even if you have to do them in batches. And again, I'm doing these a little bit bigger, mostly because probably the last thing anyone wants to do is watch me scoop for 15 minutes.
You got 10 minutes, actually.
Oh, okay. Subtle. Okay. Okay. Now, granted, this is a tray that's probably larger than any of you are going to be able to use at home and fit in your oven at home. We cheat. We're using kind of commercial size stuff. So the baking, there's always guide times, but every oven is different. If you have a convection oven, that's better because the air circulating will allow it to bake evenly. So you basically take these, put them in the oven. And again, I'm starting at 12 minutes. These are going to take a little bit longer. Oh, maybe not. They're done already. So these are the ones I made a little earlier using chocolate discs that I mentioned. So when they're done baking, you want to make sure they're done not by time, but visually. With everything that you bake, you're trying to get like a nice light brown, well, cookies, a nice light brown surface, a little darker around the edges, a little lighter in the middle. Some people actually like it to even be still a little raw in the middle when it cools off, and that's not bad at all, but you still want some nice even color. A lot of the flavor of baked goods comes from the process of caramelizing the sugars in the dough, and that's where the color is coming from. So if you don't have that, if the dough is kind of really pale, it's not going to have a really great complex flavor. In fact, it's just going to taste like sugar. It's not going to taste like a really wonderful cookie. Like I mentioned, these are done with discs. One of the characteristics when you break it open, okay, I don't even know how well this is. is you kind of get these like layers of chocolate mixed in with the batter, which is really kind of cool. And Guittard sells boxes of their discs in a lot of like nicer grocery stores. I know they have them at Whole Foods. If you're in Northern California, I think they have them at like Molly Stone's and Draeger's and a few others. And again, when you're making these, don't feel constrained by the recipe. One of the coolest things about like a basic recipe is that it's really hard to screw up no matter what you add, what you take away. You can use different flours. It's really good. A lot of people like to use rye flour or kind of like other really dark, complex flours in their cookies it's also really fantastic. Different types of chocolate, different nuts, any of that really makes for great cookies. So I think I've got a few minutes left to answer any questions any of you have. Or not.
And look, if anyone want to chat a question in, I see we have some kids on, if any kid has a question too.
Oh yeah, for kids, by the way, we have 2 daughters who have been baking since they were very, very young. This is actually something that pretty young kids can actually start to do on their own completely after they learn how to do it with someone who's going to make sure they don't kill themselves in the kitchen. There's not a lot that can go wrong with this. It's a very simple recipe, and it's a really satisfying recipe for kids to bake, not only for themselves, but to take to friends as something that they bake from scratch. It's just a really satisfying thing for them to be able to do on their own.
Okay, we got one question. The whole wheat flour doesn't make the cookie too dense?
It would if we used all whole wheat flour. It's a great question. Whole wheat flour is a very dense flour. It also absorbs moisture. Like when you let it sit overnight, it absorbs moisture in a completely different way than white flour. So if you look at the ratio, there's actually still more white flour or all-purpose flour to wheat flour. We're using, in this case, the wheat flour as a flavor ingredient. It helps the texture and makes it a little bit denser, but not so dense as a cookie made entirely with whole wheat flour. So it's a great point. Anyone else? How many minutes do I have left?
You have 5 minutes. Would you recommend almond flour or coconut flour?
They're very, very different. Okay, so very, very, very different. I would recommend almond flour, but almond flour responds differently than any wheat flours. As I'm sure if you're on a keto diet, you've discovered this when you're baking. It's really difficult to get any of the alternative, not keto kind of friendly flours to rise and have body. They don't respond to baking soda or baking powder the same way either. But in terms of kind of your best bet and really great flavor, I definitely prefer almond flour.
Okay, a couple more questions very quickly. Have you ever tried to make cookies in an air fryer?
No. I've actually never used an air fryer. I've kind of like only ever seen them in ads. But that's actually a really cool idea. I honestly have no idea how it would work. Whoever asked the question, try it and let us know, please. Because it's fascinating. I have no idea.
Okay, and then the last question is, do you ever use these cookies to make ice cream sandwiches, and what flavor ice cream do you suggest?
I don't, but you could very, very, very easily. The one thing you'd probably want to do is take out the baking soda. When you're making a cookie for an ice cream sandwich, you want it to be a little bit thinner and a little chewier. And I am like so boring when it comes to stuff like this. I love vanilla ice cream in an ice cream sandwich. The vanilla, it is to me like one of the best things in the world. So yeah, vanilla ice cream between 2 good chocolate chip cookies is amazing. And if you want to dip it in melted chocolate, it's even better.
Thank you.
Why is that the last?
Well, I don't know. So somebody else has one. We got a couple of minutes. Oh, sea salt caramel between cookies is divine. Oh.
Yes, it is. And actually, sea salt caramel chunks inside of a cookie is really fantastic.
What other cookies do you make that use chocolate?
Well, probably my all-time favorite is oatmeal chocolate chip. I love oatmeal cookies. I don't really like oatmeal raisin cookies. So I make at home a lot when I make cookies, oatmeal chocolate chip. And when I make those, I do it a little bit differently because those are kind of small. They're only about 3 inches around and they're a little flatter. So when I make those, I actually use what are called 10,000 count or mini chips or mini chips. By weight, you just end up with so many more chips per ounce or per pound. And when you're putting them in a kind of a flat, small cookie, it's just fantastic. But that's actually, I mentioned it's an oatmeal cookie. Oatmeal chocolate chip cookies are my all-time favorite.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you so much. And
My
thank
pleasure.
you all for baking with us tonight. Please enjoy the cookies as soon as they're ready. I will definitely be making a batch when this is over. I have my children like over my shoulder now, seeing your finished ones out there. So when this is all done, that's our plan. But don't forget to check your ovens if the cookies aren't out yet. We'll take a quick break and meet you all back here for the program part of the evening. Just 3 minutes. Good evening again, and welcome friends who are just now joining us. And of course, welcome back to those of you who baked with us. Once again, I'm Natalie Gluck-Mitchell, and I will be your MC for the night. I'm so proud to be a Healthrate 360 Prototypes board member, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the virtual gathering of one of our favorite annual events, Celebrating Mothers. We gather this evening to celebrate the important life-affirming work of Healthrate 360's program Prototypes and honor the women and families who come to rebuild their lives and find recovery from addiction and treatment for mental health. Hey, did you know that it's our 35th birthday on December 2nd? So thank you for being here tonight and joining us in celebrating. Since 1986, Prototypes has been providing quality, integrative, compassionate healthcare for vulnerable women and their children in Southern California, most of whom have long histories of trauma and lives derailed by poverty and addiction. Prototypes operate sites throughout Southern California, in Oxnard, Tustin, Pomona, and several sites throughout Los Angeles, serving more than 10,000 women, men, and children each year. After 3.5 decades, Prototypes remains at the forefront of designing effective services for diverse women and children with complex needs. Prototypes proves that with the right kind of help, women from all walks of life can overcome these challenges. Tonight, we will honor women in our community whose life work and commitment have been integral to our mission and whose lives have served as inspirations to our clients. If you feel compelled during the event to support our work with a donation, please text HELP MOMS, that's HELPMOMS, to 707070, and you will get a texted response for payment. Please enjoy a video from moms currently in our program.
My name is Lorraine, and your name is?
Sage.
Sage what?
Sage Nukubusamanti.
Hi, my name is Rosalinda Velasquez.
Hi, my name is Jeanette, and I've been here at Prototypes for 45 days now. This is my second treatment here at Prototypes. I was here about 8 years ago. I did 9 months last time. I was re-entry program. And this time I came back. I'm pregnant.
Like honestly, without this place, I don't think I would have understand really what it takes to be a mother for her, because I've just kind of done my parenting from what I've learned as a child, and it's not the best.
It made me how to realize that how much it's important to be a mom. Like, I feel like they need me, and I feel that I need them they need their original mom back, you know. And this program is working for me. Like I'm gonna stay, I'm gonna stay here and just keep on being straight and strong and brave for them, so I could be the mommy that they had before,
Eisen prototypes helped me like get my mind back on track and clear my mind up, to think about her and what I was doing out there damaging her, so it helped me, and it also helped me like stay clean.
Like everyone's really supportive and everyone helps me out. Like when people say it takes a team to raise a child, they really do mean it, because everyone here helps me out a lot, and it makes my experience here so much easier because they help me out with her. So I'm really grateful for a lot of the women here.
My kids remember this place, and they don't remember it as a bad place. Like they really don't, and they're happy like to they've made family from here,
Yeah, and it's like it feels like being with your family in here,
Thank you. As a mother myself, I'm grateful to have programs like Prototypes available. Support from compassionate community members like you allows us to continue to provide these essential and innovative services. Tonight, we are seeking your help to support clients like the amazing moms you saw in the video. If you wish to contribute, text HELP MOMS, again, that's HELPMOMS, to 707070, and you will get a texted response for payment. And now it is my honor to introduce Healthrate 360 President and Chief Executive Officer, Vitka Eisen.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you so much, Natalie. Good evening, everybody. I am envious of all of your home-baked cookies. Your homes must smell amazing right now. We're so glad you joined us tonight to support our clients. To quote former First Lady Michelle Obama, "The measure of any society is how it treats its women." For 35 years, Prototypes has been at the vanguard in transforming treatment for pregnant women and moms who struggle with addiction, and in making sure that accessing a full scope of care did not require them to be parted from their children. Prototypes continues to be a national model for women's treatment, and Healthrate 360 could not have been prouder when Prototypes agreed to join the Healthrate 360 family of community-focused integrated health programs in 2016. We believe that our programs and services to our communities are enriched as a result of our partnership. That partnership, combined with our shared dedication to the people we serve, helped us get through the enormous challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, from the initial crisis surge period through today. As an essential service, the work of Prototypes never stopped as we innovated and adapted to the threats of this novel virus. We made sure to keep our doors open and our staff and clients safe. We sourced hundreds of thousands of units of personal protective equipment and invested in HEPA filters and other facility modifications to prevent the transmission of COVID-19. You saw the video of our clients with their masks, still engaged in treatment. We learned to cohort clients and to manage quarantine, isolation, and outbreaks. We stayed staffed and creatively provided care to our clients in residential treatment and outpatient while maintaining all health and safety protocols. Prototype staff supported our moms in our care who had school-aged children developing fun, virtual social activities in order to reduce their isolation and disconnection from friends. And when vaccines became available, we made sure that our clients had access to vaccines. The COVID-19 pandemic did not interrupt addiction. In fact, 2020 saw the highest number of drug overdoses ever recorded in the United States, 92,000 lives tragically lost. No one needed to tell us this. We knew our work was and is essential. From the rise of the pandemic in California through September of this year, Prototypes treated 730 women with children on our campus in Pomona. And we couldn't have made it through this challenging period without lots of support and dedication. We depend on amazing staff members, strong community support, and our outstanding and dedicated board leadership. You already had a chance to meet our fabulous MC this evening, board member Natalie Gluck-Mitchell. And now I'd like to introduce you to another board member, one of our longest serving supporters, the amazing Karen Poynter. Karen Poynter is a partner with Lerman & Poynter, LLP, an employment law and business litigation firm in Los Angeles. A Los Angeles native, Karen is active in the community. In addition to the board of Prototypes Healthrate 360, she serves on the board of directors of Boys and Girls Club of Metro Los Angeles and the African American Alumni Association of Loyola Marymount University. We are so grateful for her support and tireless work on behalf of our organization and our clients. Please welcome Karen Poynter.
Thank you, Vitka. It's an honor to be here tonight, and thank you all for coming. I'm looking at the numbers of people who are in the room, and it's beautiful. Thank you so much. And it's such a privilege for me to be able to introduce our first honoree. On November 3rd, 2020, Supervisor Holly J. Mitchell was elected to serve the 2nd District of Los Angeles County. Throughout her career in public service, Supervisor Mitchell has always worked with the understanding that creating a California where all residents can thrive means investing in the communities, families, and children of Los Angeles County. Having authored and passed over 90 laws in the California legislature, I think that was probably a record during her time there, Supervisor Mitchell brings an extensive public policy record to the Board of Supervisors. Many of her bills have been at the forefront of expanding healthcare access, addressing systemic racism, and championing criminal justice reform. As supervisor, Ms. Mitchell is proud to serve the 2 million residents of the 2nd District, which includes the neighborhood she grew up in, Leimert Park. Supervisor Mitchell is a University of California at Riverside Highlander, a Coral Foundation Fellow, and mother to Ryan. And Supervisor Mitchell is my friend. She's all that is said about her is true. She is a soldier, a committed person, a beautiful soul who cares about every single resident of the state of California and the county of Los Angeles. And I'm so honored to call you my friend, Holly. So with further ado, I introduce to you the beautiful Holly J. Mitchell, Supervisor.
To my sister, friend, and neighbor, Karen, thank you so much. And let me just tip my hat, as I've served in the past as on boards of nonprofits, as executive directors of nonprofits, and to have a board member like Karen, who has been with Prototypes for all these years, please know that I know she's a jewel, and I deeply appreciate you for all you do for all of us. And so good evening, everyone. Thank you for that generous introduction and for recognizing me this evening. It means a great deal to me because my history with Prototypes goes way back, as we like to say. I first remember, my first recollection of my connection with Prototypes was in the mid to late 90s when I was a consultant working for the California State Senate under the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services that was chaired by Diane Watson, who led the Legislative Women's Caucus to CIW to talk about and see incarcerated women and hear directly from women who were pregnant and expecting. And for the Women's Caucus members, I think, to have the aha moment about, oh my God, what happens to a woman in jail when she's pregnant? To hear the stories about women being belly chained and handcuffed and shackled when they were leaving CIW to go to Riverside Community Hospital to deliver, and remembering Prototypes partnering with CDCR to develop alternative options for female inmates who were pregnant and parenting, and what a novel concept that was. That's my first recollection and connection with Prototype. Then years later, when I had the privilege of being first on the board and then the executive director, sometime that happens, of the California Black Women's Health Project, we partnered with Prototypes in our Women's Self-Help Resource Center right there at Central Avenue. So I have history with Prototypes. Happy 35th birthday. And congratulations on this new marriage with, let me get it right, Healthrate 360. So I'm glad to know that Running nonprofits that serve women who've experienced trauma, who are substance abusing, needing mental health services, and on top of all of that, pregnant and parenting. As my grandfather would say, ain't an easy road to hoe. So for you all to have stayed true to your mission and continue to provide these critical services, please know that it is my honor to acknowledge and recognize you for all your hard work. And so I tip my hat. To the women who are beneficiaries of your services, to your board members, but mainly to the women who are the beneficiaries. That was a powerful video that I think really aptly reflected why you do what you do and the lives you have impacted and will continue to do so. Please know that there are those of us in government who understand our mission is to figure out ways in which we can be constructive partners in developing policy, in breaking down systems of oppression that continue to complicate the lives of women who are just trying to make it work every day. As a mother myself, I certainly understand. And so know that my 10 years in the legislature, I did all I could to bring resources and services. So proud that because of the new resources available, that finally doula services will be covered under Medi-Cal. Imagine that we are finally acknowledging the important work that community health workers and promotores programs that you all have known for decades is the model that works. But sometimes government is slow. But to recognize the work and to validate the work by actually engaging in partnership and having government pay nonprofit organizations for that community-based door-to-door work is so important. I'm glad that I was just around long enough for government to wake up and figure out that that's the work that we should be doing. So please know how pleased I am about that. And please know that as a newly elected member of the all-female LA County Board of Supervisors, a little shout out for that reality, I am continuing to elevate these issues on a very progressive board, a board that made decisions in the last several years about care first, jails last, a board that created an initiative that was going to focus on the needs of women and girls in LA County, a board that came up with an initiative that talked about anti-racism and anti-Black systems and looking at ourselves first as a county that administers programs to try to peel back, again, those decades, layers of systemic oppression that impacts your target population and, quite frankly, all of us. So I'm proud to join this board at this moment in time where we are going to continue to make history. We're going to continue to be a group of badass women who are going to fight in support of badass women like the women at Prototypes, your staff, your board, and the women who benefit every day from your hard work and services. Please know I am humbled by tonight's recognition. I applaud our shared history and our shared commitment. And after we eat the cookies, we're going to roll up our sleeves tomorrow and get back to work. Thank you very much for allowing me to share some time with you.
Congratulations, Supervisor Mitchell. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you.
Big fan of yours. We wanted to just take a quick moment to share with you a few examples of what your continued generosity, our community, will allow us to accomplish. $1,000 will provide a woman with a week of intensive life-saving addiction treatment and mental health services. Every donation matters, and every donation really makes a difference. Remember, you can text Help Moms to 707070. And it is now my pleasure to introduce April Torres, Vice President of Behavioral Health for Healthrate 360, where she oversees all of Prototypes programming. April.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Supervisor Mitchell. You took me back to a time when I remember that work, when we worked with the team at CIW and looked at alternatives to incarceration way back then, right? And went on that mission to stop the shackling of women during labor. And so thank you for that memory of some badass work that we were doing then, right? And so grateful for your participation in the all-female board, and I'm excited to see where that's going to go. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this exciting celebration. 35 years ago, our Prototypes founders started this program with the goal of changing treatment for women and children. Their mission was to develop innovative models of service delivery that were gender responsive and comprehensive. Their dream helped me through an impossible situation I found myself in 33 years ago as a pregnant IV drug user, seemingly with nowhere to get help until I found Prototypes. I came to the organization in desperate need of help, and I found hope and gained the tools that I needed to change my life. Now, after 3 decades, I get to come to work every day, thrilled to pay it forward and help the clients we serve change their lives. In 1988, our flagship program in Pomona opened, and today still continues to serve the most vulnerable populations with life-saving treatment, providing care to those that other treatment programs have turned away due to their cases being too complex. I'm proud to say that we are often the last house on the block for these folks, and we welcome them with open arms and hearts. As I look back on our work since 1986, a prototype to provide the most impactful, integrative, and efficient services has always been our guiding principle we set for ourselves. Many times we've worked with the city and with city and state agencies and foundations as well to pilot projects like our Second Chance Women's Reentry Court program, our Star House for battered women with co-occurring disorders, and the S. Mark Taper Foundation Family Living Center, providing transitional and permanent housing, and most recently becoming a part of Los Angeles County's new Alternatives to Incarceration initiative, as well as many others. Our top professionals and dedicated staff provide residential, outpatient, and outpatient addiction treatment, detoxification services, mental health services, prevention, education, vocational training, and parenting support for men, women, and children. Our staff offers compassionate care to all of the clients who come to us to rebuild their lives. Today, as we're gathered to celebrate Prototype's impact over the last 35 years, I'm so grateful to this agency for not only saving my life and helping me break generational cycles of addiction in my own family, but to know that this has been done for thousands of others in our community. Again, thank you all for being here and supporting our organization. I'm delighted to present the 2021 Celebrating Mother's Shining Star Award to Courtney Friel. Ms. Friel is a news anchor, reporter at KTLA. You can catch her anchoring primetime newscasts on the weekend and reporting 3 days during the week. Prior to her move to Los Angeles, Courtney was an entertainment reporter for the Fox News channel, contributing to a number of entertainment-related programs. Her book, Tonight at 10, Kicking Booze and Breaking News, is about the road to sobriety. She is 12 years sober. She said that giving up alcohol and drugs on 9/9/09 was the best decision of her life, and that she is blessed beyond her wildest dreams. Courtney is a mom of 2 amazing kids, Cash and Cameron. She's of service and on a mission to help people struggling with addiction. Courtney was unable to be with us tonight, but she sent a video message.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for making me the Shining Star honoree at this year's Celebrating Mothers event. And congrats to Prototypes on its 35th anniversary. Wow, more than 3 decades of helping out vulnerable women and their children in Southern California. Thank you for recognizing how important it is to help women with addiction issues. Addiction is a touchy subject. It's a problem that many people just want to sweep under the rug or completely ignore. So props to those who understand and have the compassion to want to help. I try to do my part by being a recovery advocate and promoting the joys of sobriety. I just celebrated 12 years sober, but before that, I had a 15-year partying career with booze, cocaine, pills, and I could have gotten in a lot of trouble with the law or lost my job or even accidentally died. I ended up being interventioned by 7 people surrounding my bed, and fortunately, I knew in that moment I deserved more from my life and that I had more to offer this world. So I went to rehab for a month and did a ton of self-help work after that, which I continue to do to this day. Look, I know how difficult it is to quit drugs and alcohol, but now I love living sober. The blessings of my recovery are my son and daughter, who are now 9 and 10 years old, and thankfully I've always been 100% present for them. I appreciate Prototypes recognizing what I'm trying to do as a so-called news celebrity to spread the word about how it is possible to get and stay sober. You can still have fun without drinking. You can have real connections and show up for the people in your lives. And in an effort to help more people, I wrote a book about my journey and the important tools that I use to cope and live life on life's terms without numbing out. Thank you to the Prototypes team of professionals for changing the lives of thousands of individuals in Southern California by giving them safety, shelter, services, training, and other types of support. I hope that you will all open your wallets tonight to raise the funds needed to help more women who are out there struggling. Keep inspiring hope, health, and independence. And thank you again so much for this Shining Star honor. Good night.
Thank you, Courtney, for sharing your inspiring story. We at Prototypes help serve women struggling with many of the very same things you've overcome. And our greatest hope for the women we serve is not just that they survive these circumstances, but they can thrive. Now, please join me in welcoming Jessica, our wonderful Prototypes alumni. We are so proud of all that she has accomplished.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. So my journey starts with enduring an abusive marriage, abusing methamphetamine as a coping mechanism, and trying to raise 2 young children while pregnant in the midst of this chaos. I found myself in a dark place, riddled with ongoing depression, suicidal ideation, and anxiety. My abuser had seized most of my being, and I only had my beautiful children to rely on for a sense of hope. Isolated from family and friends, I consistently felt fearful, alone, helpless, hopeless, unsafe, and unloved. Dealing with my unplanned pregnancy, the abuse had increased on a day-to-day basis. Not recognizing myself gazing into the mirror, I made a conscious decision to stop using on September 10th, 2011. With a clear mindset and a sense of courage, a week later on September 19th, 2011, my abuser tactics of power and control once again escalated into a physical altercation. I found myself in the fetal position, repeatedly kicked into submission. My sister called 911 reporting this, and I knew in that moment I could not return if I wanted to survive. I decided to enter an emergency domestic violence shelter for protection. There I learned I was pregnant with my 4th child. Seeking further safety, Prototypes was recommended to me. My intake with Prototypes Star House was not only promising and reassuring, but also they were willing to take a single mother with 3, possibly 4 children. Arriving to Prototypes Star House, I was willing to make a drastic change in my life for our safety. I can attest that it was not an easy journey. Staff was kind and always reassuring of my potential, convincing me to stay. The staff at the Prototype Star House made an incredible impact on my life, and it became my greatest support system in my journey to rebuild my self-esteem. Prototype staff provided my family with unlimited resources, education, support groups, and healing. I knew I was not alone anymore. Prototypes introduced me to the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, where I met incredible individuals with years of recovery. I utilized all the programming and education classes Prototypes had to offer. Having the opportunity to grow and evolve at Prototypes prepared me for the next opportunity they afforded my family and I. housing at the Prototype Smart Taper Living Center in Pomona. Moving into our safe home was an enormous blessing and an example of my hard work and determination. I personally dedicate the Kickstart to my academic journey to prototypes. I knew I wanted to start working on life goals with my amazing case manager. I continued my education, earning my associate's degree, then transferring to Cal Poly Pomona, earning my bachelor's degree in 2018. Following my degree, I obtained a position as a DV advocate for a domestic violence agency in my community as a means to pay it forward. Prototypes has continued to be the foundation in my journey to healing. I can proudly claim 2021 being my year. My milestones include 10 years free from abuse, 10 years clean, and earning my master's degree in higher education leadership. Every day is a day of perseverance, healing, and gratitude. My lived experiences have contributed to the person and mother I am today. I am a chingona, a badass, a survivor, resilient, and prepared to share my compassion and story to inspire those who feel alone and hopeless. My trials were difficult, but they have encouraged me to be an agent of change, contributing to make society more courageous, outspoken, inclusive, equal, and diverse. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, so much for sharing your story with us so bravely. I know that I'm inspired. We wish you continued good health and success in life. All the people here tonight are behind you and celebrate your commitment to yourself, your children, your healing, and your education.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now I just want to say thank you to one of our generous sponsors. This event would not be possible without them. We are so grateful. Please welcome one of our corporate underwriters and longtime supporters of our work, Tina Koenig from Burnham Benefits Insurance Services. Tina?
Great. Thank you so much. You know, Burnham's super proud to be able to work with Healthrate and the human resources staff to develop an amazing benefit program offering to their staff, but we're even more proud to sponsor this event. It's hearing the stories of the women makes what we do, selling insurance, seem so important in the grand scheme of life. And it's just, it's so easy for us to give financially. It's so hard for you guys to do all of the work that you do. So for anybody who's out there, you know, make sure that you're texting in, make sure that you're supporting financially, because like I said, that's the easy part. You guys are doing the heavy lifting, and we're super proud to support you, and we'll continue to support you for many years to come. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Tina. And thank you to all our sponsors and our in-kind donors and our incredible planning committee. Thank you, Supervisor Mitchell. I think you win the award for the elected official who has stayed for the entire event. And so that is truly impressive. And we recognize your time is super valuable, and it also shows your commitment to our work. So thank you for that. Thank you so much, Natalie, for being our amazing MC tonight. Our clients and staff appreciate all of your support. Thank you everyone for taking the time to learn about our organization and all your support of our work. Truly, we are humbled by your generosity.
Thank you, Vitka, for your unparalleled leadership. Next up is our origami class, if you are planning to stay. But just quickly, I want to remind you, we have our auction up until 8 p.m. tonight. There are still so many amazing items, so take a look. And we're just going to move right into the origami class. So if you're ready to create some origami flowers with us, get your paper out. And before I introduce you to our class leader and we get started, I just want to tell you a little bit about how art therapy is part of Prototype's comprehensive, integrated, evidence-based services. Art therapy is used to improve cognitive and sensory motor functions, foster self-esteem and self-awareness, cultivate emotional resilience, enhance social skills, and also reduce and resolve conflicts and distress. What you'll see on the screen are a few art pieces by our clients. So now I'd like to introduce the Los Angeles Origami Studio's dedicated artist, Matthew Hine. He has been folding origami for nearly 30 years. Matthew discovered origami in his small hometown of Port Townsend, Washington, where a local artist taught him his first folds. Honing his craft over the years through books and online tutorials, Matthew became drawn to a more modern interpretation of the traditional origami art form, modular origami. Welcome, Matthew.
Good evening. Thank you, Natalie. I really appreciate being here with you all this evening, and I'm excited to fold some flowers with you all tonight. So that being said, just want to kind of set our stage here a little bit for what we're going to be seeing. So we should have had the instructions emailed to us ahead of time. If you want to follow along with those, you can. Maybe you've looked at them ahead of time. What we are going to be doing tonight is we're going to be toggling back and forth between our written instructions that we'll be able to see on the screen, and then being able to see my desktop camera where you'll be to follow along with our folds. All right. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and switch from this camera that we have here to my desktop camera so that we can see the folding. All right. So in front of you, you have your paper. You probably have one of a few different types of paper. So maybe you have a paper with a pattern on it. Usually paper with pattern has another color on the other side. All right. So there's that option. Maybe you have a piece of paper that's the same color on both sides. All right, that's another common thing. Another common type we have is we have one color on one side, a different color, a contrasting color on the other side. Now, for the purposes of our demonstration tonight, I'm going to be using the fourth kind, and that is color on one side, white on the other, just to make it really clear for our instructions. Now, regardless of what color or type of paper that you're using, I'm going to be referring to the color and the white side as the color we want to see our flower. Okay, so whenever I say, you know, the color you want to see your flower, that goes down or that goes up, that is what we're going to do. So whether you have a pattern, double-sided paper, whatever, that is how we're going to start out. All right. One other quick note, since with mirror imaging and all that through cameras, it can be a little bit confusing. I have this set up for us this evening, right? So bottom, this is going to be closest to you. Top, this is going to be closest to your computer. We do this so that you can really just match your model to what I'm doing. So you don't have to think about mirroring or anything like that. So you could even hold up your model to the screen and it should match exactly what I'm doing. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and get started with our buttonhole flower. Now, we have a couple options for our buttonhole flower. This is the sort of basic, right? So when we finish our fold today, this is what our buttonhole flower is going to look like. If we want to get a little creative and do a little bit of zhuzhing here and there, we can fold in the corners a little bit, maybe put a little bit pom-pom in the middle. And so this is what we're going to be starting with right now. So we'll end up looking like this, and we might get to this point after the session today. So let's go ahead and get our buttonhole paper out. Today I'm using yellow, so it's nice and light for you to see. Now, it's really important, whatever color we want to see our buttonhole flower, we want to make sure that that color is facing down. So we're going to start with this facing down right now. Okay. For today, I'm also going to use a chopstick just to kind of show the different lines and where we're going to be folding our paper. So when you see me doing that, that's all I'm doing is we're doing a little visualization of how we're going to be folding this paper. Okay. We did have a little note that we might want to have a chopstick handy or a pen or a pencil or anything like that. That might be as we go along if we just sort of need to manipulate the paper a little bit or open up a little section or something like that. So that's why some of us might have that as well. So we'll get started. So the first thing we're going to do is actually pretty simple. If we have folded an origami crane before, which a lot of people have, this is going to seem really familiar to you. So we're going to just start by making a line from one tip here to the other tip, okay, folding this down. Okay. At this point, it really doesn't matter in which direction we're doing this. We're just matching these up. And the more precise we can be, the easier it's going to be. And the more symmetrical our flower is ultimately going to look. Okay. We're going to be doing this a lot tonight. Every time we fold something, we're probably going to be unfolding it. All right. These are called guidelines. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to unfold my model like this. Okay. And now I want to do the exact same thing, but just from our other tip to our other tip, getting a nice line running that way. All right. Once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and unfold it again. So right now I should just have this sort of like X shape running through my model. Okay. And in a minute here, we're going to put back up the instructions just to make sure that we've done our first few folds correctly. So now at this point, I want to flip my model over so that the color of my buttonhole flower is actually facing up the color that we want. All right. I'm just going to orient my paper a little bit like this. So now what I want to do is we have this nice X going here. Now I want to get a sort of cross shape going this way. Okay, so now we're going to take this edge and fold it over to this edge, making a nice straight line right down our middle. So right now we're making something that's called the square base, which is pretty simple, right? Yeah, okay, it's a square. Usually in origami, we start with bases, okay? So this time we're starting with our square base. Okay, similar thing, we're just gonna go ahead and unfold that paper, and then we wanna have a nice line going right across the middle here. I'm gonna return my paper just like this because it's a little bit easier for me, I'm right-handed. Okay, and again, I'm gonna unfold this. So right now I have my paper in front of me. It's kind of sticking up on the sides, right? I have a nice X across here and a nice cross going across. Okay. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and leave my paper oriented just like this. Turn it so it's like a diamond shape. Okay. Now just as a reminder, bottom, this is towards you. Top, this is towards your computer. Okay. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be concentrating on this square right here. Okay. And this square at the top. And what we want to do is we want this square to match up with this one right down here. And the way we're going to do that is we are going to bring in our corners and fold this down and towards you. Okay, so the way we do that is we just bring in these corners and we bring it inward and down. Okay? And then we get this sort of sail shape here. Okay, we want to push that down as well. And if we have our folds nice and creased, we should see that we go right into this diamond shape or square shape, depending on how we're orienting our paper. Okay, now if you miss that, I'm going to go ahead and do this again for us. Okay, so I'm unfolding. If you folded it correctly, just you can leave it folded this time. Okay, but again, where we're taking it like this, bringing in these corners, those folds we've already made really help us folding it down. Okay, and then pushing this top piece down like this. Okay, and again, if we've made a crane sometime in the past, this is that exact base for the crane, the square base. All right. Maybe we can set up the instructions just for a quick moment, just to make sure that we have our first three steps done here. All right. So if we look at steps 1 through 3, we see that we just went ahead and made that egg shape, and then we turned our paper over and made the cross shape, and then brought those corners in to make our nice diamond or square shape that we have. Okay. All right. And if we look ahead, if we look at well, 3A doesn't tell us too much, right? That's where we're at right now. But for 4A and 4B, we can start to see how we're going to move these sails around, or these fins, I guess we call them, a little bit, and start to squish them open a little bit here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go back down to my camera here and concentrate there. So, so right now, right, we have our square shape. At the top, it's closed, right? We can't open it here. At the bottom, this is where we have our opening. All right, so what we want to do right now is we're just going to go ahead and see we have 2 layers on top, 2 layers on bottom. We're going to lift one side up here, and we just want to squash this. This is called the squash fold. Now, mine is kind of doing it. I might need to take my chopstick and just kind of help myself out, okay, by pushing that down so I get a nice fold. And we see we have a nice line in the middle here. I want to line that up right with my middle line on the bottom. Okay, so not too bad. Okay. So again, if we missed that, right, we started here with our square. I lifted up my sail and I just squashed it down right in the middle. Okay. And throughout this process, the more we crease this, the more symmetrical, the more pleasant looking our model is going to turn out in the end. All right. So now what I want to do is I just want to move this over one. Okay, we get this little shape here, and that just allows me to move up the second layer on the other side. If you move it over and you think, well, wait a second, why does mine look like this? We just need to do the other side. Okay, so move it to the other side, right? And then we pick this side up. We're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna squash this down. We're essentially doing this 4 times. So this is number 2, lining up that middle line right there. Okay, I made a little mistake on mine, that's fine. We won't see that in the end. And once I do that, I just wanna get it back to the shape I just had it. So again, I'm just gonna move this back over, just kind of get myself back to the shape, okay? We can kind of start to see the shape of the flower come together here, right? We just want to flip this model over. We're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. All right, so flip this over, take up one of my fins or sails here, squash it down right in the middle. And my paper's giving me a little bit of difficulty tonight, so I'm going to use my chopstick. You also might notice that the warmer you are, the more humid it is in your house. It might be a little bit difficult to manipulate the paper because it can get a little bit damp. That is what I'm experiencing right now. All right. So again, we just fold over this one little side here. And this should be our last little sail or fin that we're working with. I'm going to squash this down. All right. So we're about halfway done. Okay, so this is starting to come together here. Once I've done this last little step, I just want to fold that last flap back over so that I have this shape, right? So right now, I should not see the color that I want my flower to be. All right. If that's not the case, if you're like, wait a second, this is the color that I want, that's okay. After we do this, you have the instructions. All you need to do is just start with your paper oriented on the different side, and then you'll achieve your desired color. All right. So from here, what we're going to do is we are just going to go ahead and fold these flaps back so that we can see the color of our flower. And we do want to use this line right here as our guide. Okay, so we can imagine the straight line going across. And we'll see that when we pull this back, our model doesn't really let us pull that back any further. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use that straight line that's already there. I'm just going to fold these back. And since we just did this on 4 sides, we're going to repeat this on all 4 sides as well. So the easiest way to do that is once we have it on one side, is to flip our model over. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing, right? So we can have this imaginary line running from right across this way, and we're folding this flap back. All right. Okay. So now what we have, we've done this on 2 sides. But we need to get these done. So what we need to do is we need to take the plane from this to this, okay? And the way we do that, I know that was confusing. All right, so the way that we do that, right, we're just gonna kind of get our fingers in here, other side too, okay? We want an even number of layers on each side. So I have 2 here, 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, okay? And all I wanna do is just kind of fold it up this way, right? And we can start to see that shape, right? Fold it that way, fold this way. And when we set it down, all we've done is just oriented our model to a different plane, okay? If I lost you just then, I'm going back. Okay, so if I put this together, right? Okay, that's what we just had. Now I'm bringing these 2 together, turning it slightly, bringing that together, setting it down, okay? And all that does is it now lets us work on this side more easily. Again, that imaginary straight line right across here, we pull this back, make sure it's nice and straight and centered. Okay. If you're like me, you probably already tried folding this model when you got the instructions. Maybe we made it this far. Maybe we got to a frustration point and thought, you know what, I'm going to wait. So, you know, right now, maybe I'm answering some questions that you had before we even got started, hopefully. All right. Again, last one, straight line right across here. We fold this back. Some of you are ahead of me. That's great. All right. So at this point, this is what our model looks like. Now, what we want to do is fold it right along this line. So this is going to get really thick. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm using that center line that we have to take all the layers, and it doesn't matter which way we do this, left or right. Okay, I'm just folding it over like this, and I'm making a nice crease there. Okay. Now at this point, why don't we go ahead and put up our instructions one more time, just so we can make sure that we're all on the same page and that we've made it to this sort of little sailboat shape here. Okay, so now we're on step 9. Okay, and we're about to manipulate the top part of our model here. So 5, 6, 7, 8, this is all what we just did, sort of moving that model around and folding those flaps downward. All right, so back to our desktop camera here. We're gonna go ahead and do our next few steps. And really all that is moving this, just getting it bent over, okay? What we're doing here is we're bending over this part of our model, okay? This is the part that would go into like a buttonhole or a lapel or something like that. That's why we call it the buttonhole flower, okay? So from here, what we wanna do is I'm gonna sort of use where my color stops and the white starts right here as my point to fold this top part over, all right? So if it's a 90-degree angle, that's great. If it's different, it really doesn't make a difference. It'll just angle our flower a little bit differently. Okay, so I'm folding it over just like that. So again, if we miss that, we're starting here, using this point right here with the triangle connects to just fold this over sort of like 90 degrees. Okay. Now from here, all we need to do with this is we just want to reinforce this fold going in the other direction. So I'm literally just going to flip my model over here. Okay, and we see that this is underneath. I want to unfold it. And this is going to be a little bit messy and it's not going to be perfect, and that's fine. We just want to use that same line then to fold it over the other way. It might feel at first, it's like, wait, this is not helping me at all, but it's reinforcing it. Okay, we just have a lot of layers going on here. All right. Okay, so now from here, this is where the magic of origami starts, okay? So we're about to have a transformation. Now, this might be exhilarating, or it might be frustrating, or it might be somewhere in between, but we are gonna figure it out. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna unfold this, okay? And actually, I think it'd be a good idea for us to put our instructions back up one more time here, if we can do that. I think that'll help us sort of visualize where we're going next with this. Okay. All right. So right now we're on step 12. Okay. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually turning my model over a little bit. And I'm just going to use those lines that I already made to do an inverse. Okay. Now I know this is a little confusing and I'm going to do it again. Okay. So essentially from 11 to 12, all I did is I inverted that piece. So I'm going to undo this again so you can see where we started. All right, we started here. I have my line right there. Okay, and I am just folding it in our other direction. Okay, so that we have it like this. So now it's inside of our layers as opposed to just being on the outside of our layers. Okay, if this step is confusing you, once you manipulate your flower around a little bit, you might see that it kind of just pops into shape, okay? Because it can be a little bit tricky here. So now what we want to do with this is just like we see in 12A and 12B, we're just going to sort of open this up and we should see that it kind of pops open. So I'm going to take my first couple layers on this side, okay? Sometimes this takes a few tries to get it, okay? I'm just going to start to open this up. And hopefully we see that it kind of like naturally pops into the shape. I'm going to do this again in case we missed it. All right. So again, I went from here to pushing this fold in and back, making a little crease there, and then just trying to pull some of these forward layers out to open up my flower. All right. I can't see anybody right now, but if you got this, give yourself a little clap. That's really exciting. This is actually a little on the advanced side, so you can be very proud of yourself if you got it. Now, if you didn't, that's great. You'll get it eventually. It's, as Natalie mentioned, I've been folding origami for 30 years. It just takes some repetition and practice, okay? Now, we might notice that our flower is, you know, a little bunched up here. It's a little bit more open on this side, okay? And I just want to take a quick look at my chat here. So I'm saying that we are running out of time for our tulip. So you have the instructions for your tulip, which you can do at your leisure. The only thing that I'll add to this is you know, pretty enough as it is. If you wanted to add a little flair or something like that, you could always, like I did with my other model here, just glue a little like pom-pom in there or something like that. Or even just a little black piece of paper with some tape would make this real nice. And just to close this out here, I'll just show us the purpose of this here. And this would be, you know, if we have a lapel or something like this, the purpose of this flower is to be able to sit inside the buttonhole, hence its name, the buttonhole flower, and maybe a little conversation piece or a nice gift for somebody. All right. Thank you so much for following along with me today.
Thank you, Matthew. Those are so much fun. I'd like to thank you all for joining us this evening. It's been such an inspiring evening. Thank you for celebrating with us tonight. We truly appreciate your support. Please keep up with the work of our organization by signing up for our mailing list or checking on our social media pages. And just a quick reminder that there's about 30 minutes left for the auction. I see Christina put the link in the chat. And there's still so many great items. There are tickets for Rams game in LA and an LA Kings game. There's a tour around Marina Del Rey on what looks like a really beautiful yacht. There's a stay in Savannah. So please check those things out. And you know, our work just wouldn't be possible without any of you. So we're truly grateful. Thank you for joining us and have a good night.